let's talk about the 25th Amendment. Now, 25th Amendment has been talked about a lot by Democrats, some Democrats and some liberals recently. The idea being that the 25th Amendment might be invoked in order to remove Donald Trump from office. The 25th Amendment, Jeff Greenfield wrote a good piece in Politico about it, by the way. The 25th Amendment, you've probably seen it. I think it's been invoked several times in 24 TV show and some other TV shows. But is it really something we want to be wishing for? Let's think about it for a second. Greenfield calls it a liberal fantasy ripped from a Hollywood script. Well, first of all, a lot of people don't realize this, but this whole succession of power issue in the presidency, it's pretty new, and the 25th Amendment itself is pretty new. It happened, it came about after the assassination of John F. Kennedy in 1963, and the idea was Section 4 of the 25th Amendment. It's invoked when the president is considered constitutionally incapable of executing the powers of his office. You know, the idea being, what if there was a serious injury, the president couldn't act, coma or what have you. Now, of course, a number of presidents have died in office. Woodrow Wilson was incapacitated in office, and a lot of people feel that his wife actually assumed extraordinary powers by controlling who could come to his bedside and who could not. So the Section 4 of the 25th Amendment created a succession process, and since Donald Trump has been elected, they've been hoping that that leaders in Congress and leaders in the Republican Party would invoke it in order to argue that President Donald Trump is incapable of carrying out the duties of his office. Now, Greenfield points out that it's not designed to work in that way. Number one, it's very unlikely, if not downright impossible, that it could ever happen. Well, okay, read Greenfield if you want to know why it's not going to happen. But I'm going to talk about why it shouldn't happen. It shouldn't happen. Now, impeachment is a different matter, but 25th Amendment, it shouldn't happen because it would be Paul Ryan and Mitch McConnell and Mike Pence, quote unquote, coming to the rescue of the American people to rescue the American people from Donald Trump. I think one of the big mistakes that Democrats have made has been demonizing Donald Trump in such a way as to make it look as if he is somehow unique in the history of the Democratic Party. He may be unique in his leanings toward white nationalism and fascism, although there's some precedent for that too. He may be unique in having a monster like Steve Bannon around him, although there is a little precedent for that too, if you remember a fellow named Dick Cheney. But none of it, not the hatred of Muslims, not the desire for power, not even the corruption, is unique in the history of the Republican Party. So do you really want Mike Pence and Paul Ryan to be the heroes and saviors of the American people? Because that's what you're setting yourself up for if you decide to use a 25th Amendment strategy. You're really saying, I want Mike Pence and Paul Ryan and Mitch McConnell to be seen as the heroes of the American people against this uniquely horrific Donald Trump. So what then should be the strategy for the left? And, I use terms like Democrats and liberals and the left, but they're not interchangeable. What should be the strategy for the left? I think it's got to be to point out that Donald Trump, as horrible as he is the end product of a system and a series of processes. You get demagogues into office when you have a political system that shows no signs of responding to the needs of the people. What happens in a case like that? I think I would tell you that what happens in a case like that is a Donald Trump, because you have white people who become increasingly susceptible to the siren song of demagoguery when nobody seems to be speaking to their issues in a convenient way. Now, there's some people who are just plain racist, and you're never going to get to them anyway. But the ones who are not tend to stay home. The ones who are desperate may use a desperation vote. And as for the rest of us, as for the normal communities who are not susceptible to racism, they get discouraged and they stay home. I would argue that's a lot of what we've seen. That's a lot of why Democrats are losing at all levels of government. So let us not make our struggle one of opposition to Donald Trump. Let us make our struggle one of creating a just and fair and functioning society and economy for people in all communities who have been left out and shafted by the system as it is.